Nowadays, the southern boundary of our ranch is up along that ridge line, and on the other side is Hollister Ranch, running up the coast all the way from Gaviota almost to Point Conception. It's still a working cattle ranch, just like San Julian. The history between my family and the Hollisters goes back several generations, and one person who knows a lot of that history is Rick Sawyer, who graduated from Midland in 1970.
I was walking polo ponies at Will Rogers before I went to Midland. My family had a family ranch in Siskiyou County, and I was going up there in the summers and learning how to be a cowboy. I became head horseman at Midland. By default, I became head horseman. I took the reins of those 20 horses and loved it. After a year in college, I got a job at the Hollister Ranch. 3,000 head of cattle, 80 horses. $400 a month and living in the bunkhouse and surfing perfect waves. It was the perfect life. A friend of mine at the ranch was headed to a barbecue and he had a date. So I sat in the back seat of my car. He went and picked up Kathy, the beautiful blonde Kathy. We went to the barbecue, but I could never get her out of my mind. And later, after I left the ranch, where did I go? I went and looked her up, went straight to the hamburger stand, and there she was behind the counter taking my order. Well, Kathy and I were married in October '76 in the Midland Chapel. And after an afternoon reception at Alisal Ranch nearby, we went up to top of Grass Mountain and slept under an oak tree for our honeymoon night. So then the Poet family gave us a house on the San Julian Ranch to rebuild. Kathy and I went over to this house, and you wouldn't believe it. It was brush growing in the windows. No, there weren't any windows. There was no glass. There were no porches. The roof was leaking. There was no kitchen. There was no water. There was no electricity. A fun place to begin a marriage. Well, this rundown house turned out to be a blessing in disguise. We rebuilt the house, built porches, put the plumbing in, added solar panels, light switches on the wall. It was amazing. We had our gardens, our horses. It was living in paradise. The man I was building bee boxes for in Santa Barbara referred me to a commercial beekeeper in Fillmore. And I went down there and I lived, basically worked for free, slept outside at night on a cot, and learned from a master beekeeper how to keep bees and process honey. So we were beekeepers in Santa Barbara County. Santa Barbara Honey Company. Bottling honey, keeping bees, designing labels. But there was one little thing I finally figured out. If I could sell a jar of honey, I could sell a house. So I've been a real estate broker for 27 years. After living and working on some of these local ranches for many years, I started to realize that a lot of the owners had sent their kids to Midland School for a great education. Doyle Hollister, who I met at Midland School, of course, the Hollister Ranch. The Poet family, Harold Poet, Jim Poet, Justin Poet, and Miranda Poet, all from Rancho San Julian. Now, Jose Bear and Deming Isaacson from nearby ranches, all of them Midland School graduates. So why is this important? Well, it's one thing to get a good education, get in a great college and get a great job, make a lot of money, but these Midland School graduates are moved back to the land, restoring the habitat, and are stewards of the property to the point where they're restoring creeks for native salmon and steelhead habitat and growing native grasses to restore the pristine environment the way it was 200, 300, 400 years ago before their families even arrived. But that's what Midland does for you. What Midland really does for you is let you find yourself so that you can do whatever you want to do.